What's the most messed up thing that you've eavesdropped? I was a kid, maybe 10-ish, and I was homesick from school one day. My dad left my door ajar to hear me in case I started hurling. He thought I was asleep, but I could hear him talking to his best male friend at the time, out in our family room. Dad's friend was telling him about how he cheated on his wife and how good it was. And he asked my dad if he ever cheated on my mum. Even at that age, I knew it was wrong, and my heart raced as I listened for his answer. To this day, I'm in my 30s, I'm very proud of my dad for saying, "No, I had a chance to. My brother's wife put her hand between my legs, but I shoved her away. You know I love my mum's name. I never did tell anyone about that. My parents are still together." First off, I wear hearing aids. When I was in elementary school, I had a mic that was on a necklace and my teacher would wear it. It would transmit to my hearing aid. Anyway, she was talking about her weekend out drinking and sleeping with strangers. It was worse when she realized that she'd left the mic on. This is some sitcom-level crap. My daughter is hearing impaired. Similar thing happened to her, except the teacher was talking to another teacher about Christmas presents for her daughter. Same age as mine. When her teacher returned to the classroom, my daughter whispered in her ear, "I think she'll like that." When I was a little kid, like 5 years old, I really wanted this stupid stamp set in the Family Dollar. My mum and I walked in there for her to buy tampons. We found both in the clearance bin. I overheard her talking to the lady at the cash register when price-checking the items about how she only had money for one of the items and that she was going to buy me the stamp set over the tampons that she needed. I'm 21 now and I never told my mum that I heard that. She always pretended that we had enough money, but she would skip meals or give up her stuff to make sure we had enough. And it breaks my heart to think about it. I know it's not super messed up, but still. My husband and I were at McDonald's. We took our son to the play place to try and let him burn off some energy so we could finish grocery shopping. A mother was in there with her 3 kids. One by one, she would make each one of them sit down and was interrogating them. Where was your dad sat at the spring concert? Who did he sit by? Did he talk to any of the other moms? Was he laughing and smiling when he talked to Carter's mom? Did you guys come home right afterwards? She was writing it all down. Each child was not allowed to go play unless they answered her questions. What the frick? How to Weaponize Your Children in a Divorce, a step-by-step guide proudly written by McDonald's playground woman. Gross! I was listening to 2 of my kindergarten students talk about Christmas the day before break. One asked, "Do you believe in Santa?" And the other replied, "Yeah, but he doesn't come to my house because I'm in foster care." I was fixing a woman's computer when she got the phone call that her mother had suddenly passed away. She went from powerful executive assistant to fragile little girl in 3 seconds. It was heartbreaking. That's rough. I was once at a conference as like a junior marketing whatever, and me and my boss were in a hotel lobby about to meet with a big deal manager from another company to talk about a deal when he took a call from his wife. She said there was a soldier outside her house with important news that could only be conveyed in person. She wouldn't talk to the guy because she knew what the news would be. Their son was in Iraq. His wife handed her phone to the guy in uniform on their doorstep. "I'm 500 miles away right now. Do you have something important to tell me about my son?" And then he looked at us and said he had to go home and walked away. I've been bitten in the nuts by 2 separate Scottish Terriers. I've never wanted to chase someone down the street and ask to hear the rest of the story so bad in my life. Worked at a summer camp for a few years, and I'm convinced kids don't realize you can hear them even when you're in the same room literally 3 feet away unless you're looking directly at them. Best conversation I've ever heard was between 2 9-year-olds. Kid 1, "My brother is totally going through puberty and he's only 11. Kid 2, "Aw, lucky. I know, he even has armpit hair. If I had armpit hair, I'd shave it off and glue it on my face." That's a great idea. I was flabbergasted. I don't know if this qualifies, but it should. I was a photographer at a wedding, and while the bride was getting ready, I heard 2 bridesmaids, mid-20s, talking. One said to the other about how she recently found out that beans, probably as in the baked variety, were not bits of potato as she had always thought. They're fricking beans. When I read this, I thought it would be the stereotypical "she screwed the best man" or something like that. I'm kinda pleased with the outcome here. I was at Disney in high school, and I heard a guy say to someone, "You're tiggity, but ain't good enough to eat, so put your shoes back on." I'm 35 and still have no idea what that meant. Not so much messed up, just sad. Around 2004 or 2005, I was at a meeting. During a bathroom break, I heard two men talking. One of them had a brother who was killed in the September 11th attack on the Pentagon. Shortly after the attack, the brother's widow gave birth to their second child. A year or so later, the mother died of a terminal illness. The man speaking adopted his brother's kids. He and his wife had never planned on having kids, but they stepped up to raise them. It was a big adjustment, but he loved the kids and was doing the best that he could for them. When the police showed up at my door to tell me that my upstairs neighbor was dead, I heard the EMTs say, "We're gonna have to double bag him." Then I heard my neighbor's double-bagged body being dragged down the narrow staircase because a stretcher wouldn't fit him. Thump, thump, thump. For what it's worth, the EMTs and police were also upset about having to do that. I picked up the house phone to find a conversation already in progress. And that's how I learned my stepdad was having an affair with his brother's wife. As a 14-year-old super shy busboy at a restaurant in my hometown, terrified of the early 20s waitresses, setting up a banquet while the waitresses were chatting in the kitchen with the door open, I overheard the following. "What do you think of that new kid? Is he all right in the head or something? Ah, I think he's cute. Maybe he's just slow." Took a few years to get over that one. A bunch of junkies planning on how they're going to rob someone for money to get their next hit. I got out of there real fast. My brother overheard my dad telling Mum he wished that I had gone to Vietnam. That put at least 10 layers of security between us for more than 10 years. One co-worker to another as I walked in. "I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't like black people. I just don't think I could join the Klan." Oh God. Moments ago I was telling a likely former friend that he'd surpassed his quota of saying, "I'm not a racist, but." And now I come across, "I'm a racist, but." And I think I've interneted enough today. 2 points. Firstly, good on the latter person for calling out their coworker. Also, holy crap, where in the US was that first story from? And if you're already an admitted racist, what was your reason for not joining? The fricking membership payments? When I was 10 or 11, I overheard my stepmom talking to my friend's mum about my puppy that had recently disappeared. I learned the puppy had not run away, but that my stepmom had drove it to the middle of nowhere and, I quote, set it free because she didn't want to have a puppy in the house. For those of you asking about my stepmom, she's literally the worst human being I've ever met. It's worth mentioning that she's got rid of my possessions before without asking, giving my clothes or toys to Goodwill while I was at school. I've asked her a few times about what really happened, and I gave her the opportunity to come clean. But she's always evasive about the whole thing. She'll eventually get what's coming to her. I hope she suffers as much as possible in her life and dies painfully. I caught my dad choking his chicken when I was in high school. I woke up really early and went to get a drink. I walked down the stairs and saw the TV was on and playing one of those commercials for Girls Gone Wild. I looked at the couch and my dad was just sitting there jerking it. But he didn't notice me because my dad was quite old and had bad hearing. I don't know if he saw me, but I rushed to the bathroom and stayed quiet in the dark until I thought he was finished. I felt bad for him and wanted him to at least get it done. Best single dad in the world, and I miss him, and I always laugh at that memory. I was a waitress, and I just took an order from a table of students that were all older than 18. One of them seemed pretty dim with their questions they were asking me, but nothing too stupid. One of her friends ordered duck gyoza. As I walked away, I heard her ask her friends what a duck was, and them start to explain. How the hell do you get to be over 18 and not know what a fricking duck is? My brother breaking up with his girlfriend. I learned from their conversation that they used latex protection for doing the deed, even though she was pretty allergic. The thing is, she didn't tell my brother this until they were on a break. And they were at it all the time. She would hide her infections and such from him for whatever reason. My dad's girlfriend is a special education teacher. I heard her telling my dad about a student she had with Down's syndrome. The kid had pretty crappy parents and lived in the rough part of town. Anyways, he never brushed his teeth, and as a result, his teeth were rotting, and he had to get them all pulled. He was given pain medication, but his mother ended up taking all the pills herself. The boy would be in so much pain in class that he would have to be taken out of class because he couldn't stop yelling. He yelled so much that the stitches in his mouth ultimately ripped. As far as I know, the boy still lives with his mother. I don't know why nothing was done about this. It makes me angry. She did report it, but for some reason or another, the mother still has custody. She didn't go into it much and acted as though it wasn't something she wanted to talk about, so I didn't ask further questions. I overheard my wife say, "You look really handsome, babe." She was on a FaceTime call with the guy she was cheating on me with and didn't hear me come in early from work. Still the hardest thing I've ever heard. I listened in the hallway for a few minutes and then packed a bag and left. 10 years of marriage and we have a 2-year-old. It's pretty insane. I moved out and divorce is final in October. She moved in with him. Life's rough sometimes. It'll get better, I hope. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out Easy Mode, also linked below, and subscribe. I work from home for a company based in Los Angeles, and each morning my engineering team convenes for a meeting. The new guy forgot to mute his headset, and we all tortuously ignored him, tickling his pickle for 5 minutes. Our meeting was like, yeah, so I committed those changes to and today I'll be working on changes to the mobile report. I should mention that if someone is talking or driving or whatever in the background, we always let them know if they need to go on mute. In this case, though, 15 people sat on the phone and talked over him. I'm not sure if it was a lack of guts or if we just didn't have the heart to embarrass him, but there was no mistaking what we heard. Sat on a bus home from work a couple of years back. An attractive young lady, blonde, in her 20s and dressed in smart business gear, got on and took a seat. If you'd seen the state of the bus, usually you'd understand why she caught my attention. Anyway, she picks up the phone and starts having a full conversation. It was the biggest 180 on a first impression I've ever had. Starts talking about her 2 kids who got taken into care because her and her ex couldn't stop beating each other up. The cracker of a quote was, "I'm not even sure they'll let me keep the one inside me yet." All this was a soundtrack to a silent bus. Not really eavesdropping when it's so in your face, but shocking all the same as this fairly normal 20-something revealed her openly mental home life. Let's hope that it was made up and intentionally loud to keep the possibility of unwanted suitors away. I was sitting next to a cutesy couple in 10th grade English class and I saw her mouth the words, "I'm pregnant." I can see the plane crash going on through his eyes. I'm sure I've heard worse, but my memory is that of a goldfish. And in case you're wondering, they did have a happy ending. They moved in with each other down at their families in Idaho or Ohio or something, and they were very sweet people. Also, I took an extra English class and they doubled up on English that year. Our high school worked with 4 periods per semester with different classes. So it was technically an 11th grade English class and they were seniors. Sorry I didn't include it, so it's not as bad. But there was already a 10th grader with a 1.5-year-old, or in new mother language, 18-month-old, so it wouldn't be surprising to me if they were actually 10th graders. I woke up around midnight on Easter when I was about 6 to hopefully get a glimpse of the Easter Bunny, only to hear my mum crying to my dad on the phone, divorced, to come and get my brother and I because she has no money to get us any chocolate. She was hysterical. I went back to bed and pretended to be surprised when my dad was there in the morning to come and get us. He told us that the Easter Bunny got mixed up about what house we were going to be at. Props to your mum for asking for help when she needed it, and props to your dad for giving the correct answer. Yep, although we don't know what the full story was here, there's at least a small uplifting show of co-parenting after a divorce. I was at a music festival a few years back, asleep in the tent at about 9:30 a.m., and I woke up to 2 guys speaking in panicked voices outside the tent, saying, "I know we gave him the pills, but it wasn't our fault he took them. It's not our fault. We brought him to the first aid tent. What more could we do?" and more to that effect. They also said that they'd written on his arm that he'd taken 5 pills and dropped him at the first aid tent. As soon as I heard them leave, I stuck my head out of the tent to see my best friend with her head out of her tent, both of us wondering what the frick that was about. Then we found a bag of white powder and about 25 pills in baggies, which these guys had just dropped to get rid of any evidence. Maybe an hour later, we heard that someone had died at the festival from taking 5 pills and overdosing. The penny dropped as we joined the dots between the conversation we'd overheard, the discarded substances, and the death. Very creepy. Was once walking behind 2 really good-looking girls in the street and heard one of them say to the other, "I was so constipated yesterday, I just wanted to get it out with an ice cream scooper." My mother recently said she'd been constipated so long it felt like she had appendicitis, and she practically needed a jackhammer to get the crap out of me. Thanks for that, Mum. Once I got a ride in the casual commute lane with 2 women in a gold Mercedes. I sat in the back while they carried on with their conversation. They spent about 10 minutes talking about a friend of theirs who was looking so great after she had lost a ton of weight. After a pause, one of them said, Well, it's too bad about the cancer. 3 girls were together at a bus stop. I was behind them. One was telling a story as the others listened. Girl number 1, she called me a dirty, lying hussy and she threw her bottle at me, and it shattered on the wall, nearly hitting me. Oh my god, for real? Really? Yeah. Then I told her to F off and choke on an eggplant before I slammed the door and left. Oh my god, what a B-word. I know, right? That's the last time I go to visit my aunt during withdrawals. My boss screwing the secretary in the break room. Did they not realize that you were still there, or did they not care? This morning my brother overheard 2 schoolboys talking about Chloe refusing to do hand stuff to Jake, so Jake asked her friend instead. Heard this conversation at my dining hall. Don't eat fries that you dropped on the floor, that's disgusting. Sarah, I've literally had my tongue in your butthole. I think I'm fine. About 11 years ago, at high school, one of my friends found her father hung in the backyard. They were a really nice family and he was a great guy too. They had these cafes at libraries and the food was great. But his wife had an affair with her personal trainer and probably he knew. And if I recall correctly, they had some financial issues as well. He arranged his clothes for the next day as he did every day. It was a shock for everyone. We were in the middle of a class when we discovered it. We gathered ourselves in the school's coordinator, and after some discussion, he let us leave early to support our friend. She was in shock, complete disbelief, wasn't even crying. The funeral was arranged for the next day. His family flew in from another state to say their last goodbyes. It was scheduled to 3 p.m., and after the priest's speech, he avoided any hell citation for some reason and just said something about disturbed souls and their path to heaven. Then they started burying him, and the widow starts to cry really hard. Then I overheard one of his relatives, probably the guy's sister. What the frick does she think she's doing? She killed him. Oh my god, I hate her so much. It's not as messed up as others' comments, but the suffering and hate mixed together made this day really unforgettable. A very young girl gave her mother a picture she drew as a gift while on public transportation. The mother then rudely rejected the gift. That made me quite sad. I only had her so I didn't have to go to work, said my mother about my younger sister. Turns out that as I got old enough to need less supervision, my mother realized that she'd suddenly be expected to actually make financial contributions like a normal person. That clearly wasn't for her, so she accidentally got pregante again. Took me a long time to realize what I'd actually heard. I'm aware she's a scumbag, and this is just one example of how. We no longer speak, and a decade after making that decision, I'm still glad of it. College dining hall. Me and my best friends, 5 or 6 of us maybe, heard a boy at the next table start to brag about something. He's clearly an upper-class man, older than 21, so while it could have been a party, it wasn't likely, so we started to eavesdrop. Little by little, we're just getting angrier and angrier. He's bragging on about how he adopted this kitten and tortured it to death. His buddy has got it all on camera, just going on and on about what he did to this poor animal. My buddy is a huge cat lover and we basically had to restrain him. Reports were filed and the phone was seized. One nice twist to the story, though, is that the cat torturer was caught and an unspeakable act offender was also caught. How, you might ask? Yeah, the cameraman had taken phone videos of himself roofying and performing the unspeakable act on girls at a local bar. So 2 criminals were caught, I guess. Overheard the end of a conversation that completed with a very large, emo, gay Mexican boy telling an incredibly skinny girl, and then I said to her, "That's the bed I did your brother in," and I slapped her in the face. If you were in a restaurant next to those 2, the rules of comedy dictate that you had to abruptly shout, "Check please," and hightail it out of there. When I was 16, I served a customer who was switching between ordering food with me and organizing for somebody to go and beat up a guy for hitting a significant female in his life. Once overheard a few people talking about kidnaps on my work. They were talking about doing it. I work in a restaurant in Brazil, and they were 4 guys talking about kidnapping someone. They were deadly serious. I overheard them enough through a thin wall. The worst part? They were cops. They still come to eat here from time to time and are notoriously dirty. One of them has a $500,000 car, while getting less than $2,000 per month. I never did anything about it. Who would I call? The other dirty cops? It's not creepy if you go into her locker and check her timetable. Yes, Chuck, it really is creepy. I was traveling with a friend through Honduras. and in the hostel we were staying at, we met this cool Aussie lesbian. One morning they were chatting right next to me as I woke up, but I didn't immediately get up and start talking. I realized they were talking about me. My friend, who I'd known for a few years and had a friend with benefits thing with in the past, was telling her that she thought I was transgender. I'm not. It was really strange to hear someone tell an almost complete stranger her opinion about my personal gender identity. I was at a 24-hour diner and breakfast joint in DC on a Sunday. A guy and two trashy-looking women at the counter next to us were planning out an adult film shoot. Not joking about it or anything, like it was all set and they were just figuring out some details. One time my mum told me to text my dad about something. I completely forgot what it was, and I just saw a crap ton of dirty messages. Rest in peace, soul and innocence. In a weird sort of way, this makes me happiest of all the responses. Everyone else is talking about terrible things happening and weird crap going on, but this one still shows parents keeping it spicy in a modern way, even after having kids. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.